Hello and welcome to the Gaggle What We Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, today we learned that President Putin will not be attending the in person. He won't be attending in person the BRICS summit in South Africa next month. The announcement came from the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa. And this was subsequently confirmed by the Kremlin. And Lavrov will go instead of him to South Africa. However, Putin will deliver a speech to BRICS via video conference. Ramaphosa is, of course, relieved because he thinks, well, thank God, I'm off the hook. But I think it's very important to emphasize. I mean, we said this before, but it should be said now. I mean, he behaved in an absolutely craven, cowardly fashion because there is no obligation on the part of any state party to do what the ICC tells them to do.
Their sovereignty trumps the treaty.
Exactly. The ICC has no international standing. It's not an agency of the United Nations. It has no connection with the International Court of Justice, the World Court. It's something that countries voluntarily signed on to. And there was no thing. So I just want to show you the relevant paragraphs in the Rome Statute, just in case anyone has any ideas in mind as to whether it's like, because the Human Rights Brigade, which is always on hand with all kinds of quotes, and you got to do what the ICC, no ands, ifs, and buts. You have to. That's your obligation. No. So if you look at what the Rome Statute says, here this is the first of all says now state parties shall, in accordance with the provisions of the statute, cooperate fully with the court in its investigation and prosecution. And then it says the court shall have the authority to make requests to state parties for cooperation. The request shall be transmitted through diplomatic channels or any other appropriate channel as may be designated by each state party, and then and so on. And then goes on, where a state party fails to comply with a request to cooperate by the court contrary to the provisions of this statute, the court may make a finding to that effect and refer the matter to the Assembly of State Parties, or where the Security Council refer to the matter of the court to the Security Council. So what are you going to do? I mean, okay, so you're going to do all terrible things. And then the court may transmit a request for the arrest and surrender of a person together with the material support, blah, blah. State parties shall, in accordance with the provisions of this part and the procedure under their national law, comply with the request for arrest and surrender. Okay, under their national law. That's the important point. And then where a state party receives a request under this part in relation to which it identifies problems which may impede or prevent the execution of the request, the state shall consult with the court without delay in order to resolve the matter. So you can read consultation. Such problems may include insufficient information to execute the request. In the case of a request for surrender, the fact that despite best efforts, the person sought cannot be located. And then the fact that execution of the request in its current form would require the requested state to breach a pre-existing treaty obligation undertaken with respect to another state. Yeah, so even they recognize that it may that this request may be in breach of a prior agreement between this state and another state, would require the requested state to breach a pre-existing treaty obligation undertaken with respect to another state. Well, that's pretty much what South Africa had with Russia. And then it says it says the court may not proceed with a request for surrender or assistance, which would require the requested state to act inconsistently with its obligations under international law with respect to the state or diplomatic immunity of a person or property of a third state. It says it. It's there in the statute itself.
Diplomatic immunity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and then the court may not proceed with a request for surrender, which would require the requested state to act inconsistently with its obligations under international agreements pursuant to which the consent of a sending state is required to surrender a person. So there it is. It's in Article 98. It makes it quite clear. South Africa has higher priorities. Even the statute, even assuming that he didn't have these things in the statute. And which, I mean, obviously every state is sovereign and says, well, basically, we have to make decisions according to our sovereign national interest. But the statute itself recognizes this, and that there's no obligation if it interferes with prior obligations under international law with respect to the state or diplomatic immunity of a person or property of a third state. So there it is. So the South Africans.
So what you're saying, George, it's politics. It's not
it's politics, and the South African behaved in a very craven way, and the Russians basically allowed them to walk away, get off the hook, and on this. But basically, Ramaphosa can say, we will not arrest him, and if the politicians in South Africa start screaming and yelling, it says, well, I'm the president, elections have consequences, I'm the president, and basically we're not going to arrest Putin because, I have higher priorities. And I think even Ramaphosa admitted, if you arrest a Russian president, that's an act of war. And that's a serious business, and I don't think South Africa wants to go there.
Well, yeah, particularly since your guest is a member of an organization that you're celebrating. Okay,
right.
I mean, well, obviously there's enormous Western political pressure on the South African government and on the South African president. We should expect that, but I agree with George. So, I mean, are you sovereign or not? Okay, that's just. Right. That's just, are you sovereign or not?
Right.
Now, there's one small possibility that the South African security forces might have come to the conclusion that an invited guest from a head of state from, for example, Vladimir Putin from Russia, could they protect him from some kind of Entebbe-like raid, which of course the South Africans don't want to experience. What if their security collapses? Then it's a humiliation for them, and it drives the global system into a supercharged situation here. Okay. Right. Because Russia would definitely see it as an act of war and would have no choice but to react.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree, but the possibility of an Entebbe raid can't be discounted. Now, if something like that were to happen, and then if Putin was then handed over, say, to the British or somebody, the British say, well, he had nothing to do with us. We didn't arrange this. However, now that he's in our possession, we're going to hand him over to the ICC. I think no one's going to buy that, and I think then that would be an act of war, and that there would be, I think, immediate use of force against the British or the Americans or whoever. Yeah, that's a serious business.
There's no question about that. Okay?
No, but these people are so nuts. I mean, the British have gone so absolutely crazy over Ukraine, and even before that, they've gone off the deep end. So I can envisage the British getting involved in some Entebbe-like raid on South Africa.
That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Yeah.
These people do. This is what these people do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that South Africa failed in a leadership role in an organization that so many countries want to be part of right now. Okay, it's an ascending organization, but I suppose it has structural weaknesses, and these countries do not see themselves as fully sovereign. So shame on South Africa. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, as we can see in this Rome statute, that you can drive a coach and horses through it. I mean, there's absolutely nothing there that suggests you are under some inexorable legal obligation and you can't, you know, there's nothing you can do, your hands are tied. You know, don't make me laugh. There's nothing here. You know, even if it was the United Nations, even if it was the UN Security Council, even then you have every opportunity to say, sorry, I mean, I know the UN Security Council has said that we need to do this, but it's not in accordance with our constitution, it's not in accordance with our national laws. We're not going to do it. We're not going to comply with the UN Security Council. Sorry. And that's the UN. The ICC is nothing. I mean, it has no international legal standing at all, which is why almost all the great powers are not actually party to the ICC. You know, Russia isn't, China isn't, India isn't, the United States isn't. So you know, South Africa just behaved in a very feeble way. And given, you know, Cyril Ramaphosa, you have to remember, the ANC was supported for years and years by the Soviet Union at the time when it was deemed a terrorist organization by the United States. At the time, it regarded Nelson Mandela as a terrorist and essentially a communist organization. So so that's
well, you know,
not a good look.
And also, George, South Africa obviously is prior to this incident proud to be hosting the BRICS. Okay. Because like I said, it's a rising star. A lot of people, a lot of different countries want to join it as an alternative to the West. And so what the South African president has done is that the entire theme of his hosting of this event will be, where's Putin? So, you know, you lose. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a profile in courage. I think he will look very foolish, and you know, it was unnecessary to do, and so you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, when you get into these issues of human rights and humanitarian law and all these courts, all common sense just flies out of the window.
This is Peter. Okay, this is Peter and George. We are the Gaggle. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com, visit our store, and tomorrow, this time, George will be doing his live stream.
Yeah, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Please join me. Come with comments, criticisms, and suggestions. And then, as you head out to the local watering hole for a long, tall, cool one, please think about little buddy. He's also not at all happy when, you know, we got prosecutors issuing all kinds of ridiculous indictments. You know, he says, if anyone's going to do the indicting, it's going to be me. And that's pertaining to the tip jar. So he's got a good point there. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And above all, we can keep, you know, buddy, you know, even keel. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.